This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Mark Magnuson.
Today is Monday, December 29th, 2025, and we're so glad you can join us for today's show. In today's episode, I will be joined by Sam Trainor of agmarket.net for our closing market discussion. But first, it is my conversation with Ross Bender of the Mosaic Company as we talk about maximizing plant nutrition.
Mark Magnuson for the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and I'm joined today by Dr. Ross Bender with the Mosaic Company. And Ross, could you tell me please about your role within the company?
Yeah, my name is Ross Bender, as you mentioned. I'm in product development. So the team that I'm on is involved and responsible for bringing new products to the market and supporting the existing products in the market. So we're coming up with new stuff, and we work closely with our sales team and our agronomy team to ultimately launch those products in the marketplace, to bring it to the farmers in your network.
And Ross, you're involved in the crop nutrition space, and the big thing right now that farmers are thinking about is obviously that high cost of fertilizer, but at the same time, the low price for their commodities. So what is the main takeaway there in terms of maximizing that efficiency?
Yeah, so from a Mosaic perspective and on my own farm, I'm always thinking about ways and looking for ways to maximize nutrient use efficiency. Because when you can maximize nutrient use efficiency, that's the single most important component of the equation for return on your fertilizer investment. We call it ROFI, return on fertilizer investment. So what we try to think about is how can we help our farmers? How can we help our customers build a program that brings together best-in-class crop nutrition sources and then enhance the performance, often with tools like biological tools. So we've developed and customized crop nutrition solutions that partner those different tools together.
So Ross, how do you break through to a farmer that's skeptical then and is saying, all right, I'm already getting low prices for my commodities, and then I'm paying this high fertilizer price. What do you show as far as the data and behind the efficacy of the products to make them feel like this is a worthwhile purchase?
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges we face in the marketplace is a lack of transparency, a lack of understanding, a lack of education with the growers and the retailers. We've been very intentional about trying to flip that script. How can we become 100% transparent about our technologies? When do they work? When do they not work? In what scenarios would it be best for a farmer to use, a tool that we have as an example? So one of the things that we've focused very consciously on is developing resources to share that information, to transmit that to customers. So we developed a website called TrueResponseWorks.com, TrueResponseWorks.com, and it shares across the wide range of our technologies every time we've used them. When does it work? When does it not work? What are the scenarios and the agronomic practices that accompanied that trial or that on-farm trial? And that way it can help our retailers, our farmers make their own decisions and informed decisions to better understand when they work and when they might not work, so they can use them in their own operation.
So for Iowa growers, should they across the board be at least looking into these products and seeing what they can do for them on their farm?
Absolutely. They should always be thinking about, what's new, what's coming next, especially now when margins are tight, when margins are pinched. These tools exist to enhance the mileage out of your fertility investment. They don't replace it. Nutrients like crop nutrition, granular crop nutrition, what you're bringing is NPK, other nutrients to the table. And what these biological tools can help enhance them. They're specifically formulated to do things in the soil that exude certain organic acids and that can, scientifically help unlock some of the nutrients that were either previously applied but no longer available, or that are currently applied, and it can lift the performance of either one or both of those. So to answer your question, yes, they should be, but it's even more magnified now when the margins are tight.
And then at the end of the day, is the biggest piece of that nutrient uptake? Is that the biggest piece in terms of optimizing things?
Yeah, it is. What you're driving is increased nutrient uptake that leads to improved nutrient use efficiency. And if you can increase the recovery of what you put down, just scientifically speaking, that translates to yield. So the better job you can do, you've heard of the 4 R's: right source, right rate, right time, right place. They exist to improve nutrient use efficiency. The tools that we have fall in one of the R's buckets, the source. The tools that you're bringing to help the farmer. And anytime you can get more of that fertility in the plant, the better your nutrient uptake and recovery efficiency is, and the better your yield will be.
So what is the best way for our Iowa viewers to learn more or to get involved if they're interested?
Yeah, there's 3 different things, not to make a big list here. 1, work with your local retailer or certified crop advisor to have a discussion about this, especially now when you're making decisions and putting together your plan for 2026. Number 2 is there's a website called TrueResponseWorks.com. As I mentioned, go there, play around with that. It's a map of the U.S. and all the trials. It's really kind of a neat tool to use. And then number 3, there's a website called CropNutrition.com. It helps answer any general crop nutrition questions. It's a great resource for farmers and retailers to have.
He is Ross Bender with the Mosaic Company, my guest at the NAFB convention today. Ross, thanks so much for the time. Really appreciate it, and have a great rest of the show.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you to Ross Bender of the Mosaic Company for joining today's episode of Ag Matters PM. It is time now for the closing markets, and I'm joined now by Sam Trainor of agmarket.net. Sam, what did we see in the trade in the grains here today?
We saw a lot of negative action here to start out this last trading week of the year. Corn, beans, wheat, all lower. The metals markets, which have been the bright spot here as of late in commodities, they had a very, very tough day today. Silver down about $5.50, and gold down 150. I know that's not directly related to production needs here for a lot of the listeners, but definitely been something to be keeping an eye on here. These gold and silver markets just been on a tear recently, and it wasn't very long ago that these markets, especially silver, would trade in, maybe a $5 range for the entire calendar year, and we're moving $5 in a single session. So that's been what's caught most of the attention here during these holiday trading, markets with Christmas and New Year's falling kind of in the middle of the week. Trading volumes have been very light. But those specific markets have been very volatile and interesting to follow here as of late. But as it relates to the production agriculture side of things, like I said, corn and soybeans did have a quite a bit lower day today. Corn down about 5 to 7 cents, and soybeans down about 7 to 9 today.
So last week with that lower volume of trading, we did see, there's the potential for some volatility there, but it was for the most part a quiet trading week. Is that going to be the case this week, do you think, as well, Sam, with New Year's falling kind of in the middle of the week? Could it be potentially a quiet week?
I anticipate that it will, yes. I think we'll get back to normal here a week from today, January 5th. That first full week of January, we'll get going and be back to normal. But there's just a lot of people still on vacation, out visiting family, and just taking a little bit of a break here to the end of the year. Also, a lot of guys finishing up books here at the end of the year and don't want to change a whole lot here as far as balance sheets are considered going into the end of the year. So I don't expect a whole lot of trading volume increase here to finish out the rest of the year. I mean, you look at the volatility index, it's pretty low as well. So, just not a whole lot going on here in the grains. But nonetheless, we did see, a couple headlines here today that did kind of send things a little bit lower. Black Sea tensions seem to be arising again. Sounded like we were getting awfully close to a peace deal agreement between Ukraine and Russia. Overnight, though, President Putin claimed that his residence was the target of an attempted Ukrainian drone attack. President Zelensky from Ukraine dismissed that and said that these are just more Russian lies because Russia does not want to end the war. And then President Trump also commented on this, saying that it looks like peace negotiations are getting a little bit thorny here, I think was his verbiage on that. But nonetheless, not a good sign here for reaching a peace deal in Ukraine and Russia, and I think that's why we saw the negativity here in the grains today.
So a little bit of negativity on the grain side of the markets today. Was that the same case on the livestock side of the trade?
No, it wasn't. We actually saw pretty good action there on at least on the cattle side of things. Both lives, or I guess feeders, were the only ones to finish in the green, but both live and feeder cattle spent most of the day higher. There towards the end of the session, gave a lot of the gains back and did actually close just a little bit lower on the live cattle. But the hogs were right around unchanged pretty much all day. More of the same there, like we talked about with the grains, just very light volume trade, just not a whole lot going on there. But the fundamentals still remain the same as far as cattle. The Mexican border remains closed. There's talks about potentially reopening it in 2026, but it'll be a slow process of getting that reopened and reintroducing the Mexican cattle herd into the U.S. just for precautions around that New World screwworm. And it's going to take years to get our herd back to numbers that would be satisfactory here. And it doesn't seem like demand is getting hurt too much here. So it's just a recipe for these markets to keep going higher. Cash remains high, and I anticipate that these futures markets will continue to chase that cash market.
And it did always feel as soon as that calendar turned over to 2026, we would start to get, I guess, a little bit more of a timeline potentially for when the border could reopen, or at least a little bit more clarity on that situation. Sam, what's the best way for our listeners to get in touch for more marketing information?
Best way would be visit our website, or you could give us a call here in Normal, 1-800-779-1515.
Sam, thanks so much for the information here today at the start of a new trading week. Always appreciate it, and we'll speak again soon.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Have a good one.
Thank you to Sam Trainor of agmarket.net for joining today's show. Let's take a look at the closing market numbers, which can be found anytime on our website at iowaagnet.com. March corn closes down 7 3/4 at 442 1/4. January soybeans down 9 1/4 at 1049 1/2. January soybean meal down 490 at 298.80. January soybean oil up 6 cents at 48.78. Chicago wheat down 6 cents at 513. Minneapolis wheat is unchanged at 579. Kansas City hard red wheat down 6 1/4 at 527 1/4. March oats down 2 3/4 at 305 1/4. On the Merc, February live cattle down 68 cents at 228.98. January feeder cattle up 83 cents at 347. February lean hogs down 5 cents at 84.48. February pork cutout unchanged at 93.75. Class 3 milk down 14 cents at 15.15. That's going to do it for today's closing market coverage and bring us to the end of today's show. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. For the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network team, Dustin Huffman, Riley Smith, I'm Mark Magnuson. You've been watching Ag Matters PM.